Hi, everybody. This is Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food. And today we've got another Friday with a friend. I'd like to introduce you to Cindi. And Cindi spells her name Cindi. We have quite a few Cindis on my channel. So this is the one that is Cindi. And she's going to just tell us a little bit about herself. And I think that she is mid-journey. So this is always great to hear. I always appreciate somebody that's in the middle of their journey to share with us because then there's so many more identifiable parts. So welcome, Cindi.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks.
So let's start with thank you, first of all, for volunteering for this. It's great. I do appreciate it. And it's your 15 minutes of fame, but it could even last longer than that.
Oh, I don't know, but I did want to share because, well, I've gotten braver over the last year, and I started keto January the 5th of 2018, and so amazing things have happened this year. It took me till I was 56 to figure my life out.
Wow. Happy keto-versary.
Oh, thank you very much. And I've lost 75 pounds in the last year.
Amazing.
I guess the reason why I wanted to share is because often I listen to keto channels and everybody gained weight when they were an adult. And that's not how my life went. I became obese when I was 5. And so this was in the 60s, and children were not obese in 1960, not that many of us. And so I have had a long, long history of battling weight, and it took me until I was in my 50s to find a doctor to help me with other issues I had, and to finally get where I understand myself and why I've had this history. So when I was 5, my mother used to tell me that it was because she gave me Flintstones chewable vitamins because she was worried about my health, and I ballooned. But looking back now, and when I tell you this story, you'll understand it wasn't the vitamins. When I watch you, I have to tell you, I really appreciate the effort you put in every day. I have watched a lot of keto channels over the last year, but I have come back over and over to you because faithfully every day, no matter what, you're on there. And I know it's probably hard, and I know it probably feels like you run out of things to say, or you're saying the same thing over and over again, but I need it. And so every day I listen Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekends I go back and re-listen to things that you've said because I need it. And my daughter does keto too. She started the same day as me, but she lives 1,000 miles away, even though we FaceTime every day. But we're the only 2 people that we know in real life who are doing this. And I live in a house with 2 guys. My youngest son still lives at home, and I cook for them, and they do not do keto. It's difficult some days. So I really appreciate that. But one of the things I often hear you say is, are you a food addict? And in the last year, as I've gotten my brain together, because keto really helped with that, I've thought a lot about, am I a food addict? And I thought back over my history, which is, I've been battling weight for 51 years now, and I'm not a food addict, I don't think. I'm an emotional eater. And I eat, I read recently about, is it serotonin levels in your brain that feel good, whatever the feel good thing in your brain is. I eat for that when I'm struggling with stress and chaos in my life. And so that is what I figured out about myself. When I was 5, I am from the original yours, mine, and ours family. My parents were married in the late 1950s, and they had 7 children the day they got married. And then they had more children. And so when I was little, I my parents both came from alcoholic families. Both my grandfathers were alcoholics, and they were abusive alcoholics. And I know you could probably understand that. So, and they were still in our lives. And so at our house, between both of my parents' first marriages were abusive. And so the children and dealing with that and the chaos that came in with all of these people in our lives really affected me. And so I ate to suppress that. I remember many times my mother getting calls because her father was in a field. It was freezing, temperatures, maybe snowing, passed out. We had to go get him, bring him home. Then as he was sobering up, it was rough. And then there was my brothers and sisters coming back and forth from other families in and out of the house, and they had situations, and I'm more sensitive than I ever realized to all of that. And so, growing up, I hid and ate and hid to get away from that. And I did not figure that out till I was 56 years old. So when I was in third grade, our regular family physician, who was an elderly man by then, suggested that she put me in the hospital for 3 months that summer on IVs to lose weight. And my mom said no, so that was fine. The next year, though, the school system contacted her when I was in fourth grade and asked to send me to a psychologist because I was so obese. And my mother agreed. And the funny story she tells about that is I was very resentful about it. So the psychologist, of course, when he first met me, asked me all these questions about my family and my home life. And I told him my mother was a roller derby queen. And I told him all this outrageous stuff. And he said, well, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And I said, there's 9 of us. And then my brothers and sisters have 6 other brothers and sisters. And so when he called my mom to talk to her about me, and he told her this, and he goes, and she even said this, and my mom goes, that was the only true thing she said. So we always joked about that. But what he did for a year, I started my first food diary in fourth grade. I had to write down all the food that I ate, see him once a week, go over that. He suggested to my mother I start packing my lunch because it would be more healthy for me, according to the food pyramid. And so we did that, and I lost 10 pounds that year. And at the end of the year, he took me to a local retail store and let me pick out a reward. I picked out a Barbie. So that was my first professional intervention. Then I went from there, and after that year, I didn't see him anymore, and I started gaining back weight. When I was in junior high school, my mother decided I needed to go. Well, before I went there, at the end of elementary school, they invented, I don't remember the name of them, but they were these little candies that were caramel tasting. They were, appetite suppressants. She bought those for me. I ate the whole box. They were really good. So that didn't work. So then in junior high school, she took me to Weight Watchers. We made it through 2 visits because it was so expensive and my parents were raising all of those children. It just didn't work. So I made it through 2 visits of Weight Watchers. Then my mother and I joined a gym, a local exercise. It wasn't really a gym. It was like a place where you went and did aerobics when I was at the beginning of high school. I grew up, my family was, nobody in my family was overweight, just me. There was, and I say a lot, I'm sorry. There was a lot of times I got made fun of, but it just never seemed that bad because I had so many brothers and sisters that would beat them up if they did that. So I didn't have a bad time really growing up. I did get made fun of and I did get left out of things, but it never really dawned on me until later in life that had happened. So we joined this exercise place and we went there, but we'd go eat ice cream afterwards. So that didn't really help. Then, what happened next? I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes. Oh, I remember one time at the beginning of high school, I had decided that I really wanted to lose weight. And I had read in one of those women's magazines that my mother got about visualization. So this was in the 70s. So I decided to visualize what I want it to look like. And I wanted to have long hair and plait it in pigtails and wear bib overalls, which I could not fit in. And I wanted to, you know, just be normal and do things like other people. So because my mother had to drive 2 hours to a big city to buy my clothes because they could not get them in a size to fit me locally. So then I drew a picture of that and I had it on my wall for a while. Then I decided to start walking one summer, and I walked all over the place. And I had read in another article in one of her women's magazines about rice. And one of my sisters had introduced us to rice in our family. I come from a Southern family. Rice wasn't something we'd ever heard of. So I ate rice and tomatoes 3 meals a day with butter all summer long. And I walked all over the place and I lost a lot of weight. And even one of my mother's friends called me to ask me, an adult, what I was doing because they noticed this weight loss. I couldn't keep it up when I went back to school, so I gained the weight back. And then at the end of school, in high school, a doctor, a friend of my mother, she worked at the hospital, had told her about a pilot at UVA, the University of Virginia hospital, where people went to lose weight. And my mother checked into it, and she checked into the insurance plan, and they would pay for it. So I went to the Diabetes Nutrition Center at the University of Virginia, and I went on a liquid fast for a year. I did not eat solid food for a year. I went on, it was similar to OptiFast, but that wasn't the name of it. And I went on that for a year, and I lost 110 pounds. And the day that I stopped it, because they had to take you off after a year, I started eating solid food, and well, I gained back 70 pounds. And over that period, after I graduated from high school, I was going to college as a day student, and I needed a job because I had to pay for it. And then I got a job at the Diabetes Nutrition Center at the University of Virginia. I met the most beautiful people. I've met nurses and doctors who knew about nutrition, and they inspired me. And I went back on that fast partially, and I did really good and was bringing my weight back down. And then I got hired in their outpatient clinic to do all the clerical duties. And they even sent me and let me help go to trips sponsored by the company that was doing the studies in these cities where you would listen to talks and do things. I had no degree. I was just, 20 years old. So, and I was doing pretty good, but that inspired me to want to be a dietitian. So they helped me, some of the people I worked with helped me put in my application to Virginia Tech, into their dietetics program. They gave me references, and I went there to be a dietitian. And so here I was, and I'm immersed in all of this, learning about how, the standard American diet way of doing things. And I was doing that and listening to it. And I had lost weight and kept it off, but I still wasn't skinny. I was just down. I was down below 200 finally. So then during that time, though, I started meeting boys. I started having friends, going out, doing things. And I met my husband on spring break. And I lost my head. I quit school. I got married. I eloped. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. We've been married 32 going on 33 years. And he has been the most, I just don't think that I could have done any better for moral support. In every phase of all the craziness of our lives, he's always supported everything. And so he's a wonderful man. And so we got married, ran off. It killed my parents because he was, my mother thought he was an axe murderer because I didn't know him. Then she said that was bad because my parents were of a very strict religion and he wasn't. And so there was a lot of fighting, a lot of disagreement going on there. But And he was in the military, he was in the Navy, and he was gone a lot. And for the first time ever in my life, I was alone. I had never been alone. I'd always had siblings. I had, even at college, when I went to Virginia Tech, I didn't even live by myself. I lived with my sister because she was there. I have, you know, I just never even, I've never in my life had a bedroom of my own. I've never been alone. And so, but he was gone and I was alone. When he was over in Africa at one time, our house got broken into by a man who continued to stalk me for about 3 months. I would get out of the shower, he was crawling through the window. One morning my alarm clock was going off and he was pulling the plug. He never did anything to me, but it just really affected me. So I started gaining weight back because I ate because I was stressed. So my husband came home from overseas. It was time for him to reenlist, and he decided that we had been married 3 years and we had seen each other 30 days, that maybe he wouldn't reenlist, so he got out. So then when he got out, we moved back to, he's from Kansas, I'm from Virginia, and we moved back near my parents because, well, my parents were very strong, opinionated, and trying to, you know, keep us all together. And that was okay, but I got pregnant with our first child and I gained a lot of weight, almost 300 pounds with him. They told us that he was dead. I didn't believe them, and we went for a second opinion. He wasn't. He's going to be 30 this coming year, or this year. But the stress of that, I just ate and I ate and I just gained a lot of weight. So I had gained up more than I had originally been when I started the liquid fast diet and I had my child, and I lost it down some, but not a lot. And we were in our late 20s then, and I wanted to have more children. So every doctor that I saw said, it's your weight. You can't have children because your weight. You have to do something about that. I tried Slim Fast. I tried everything. You know, I've tried the grapefruit diet. I've tried all these diets, and it just didn't work. So we were going to a doctor that I used to work with at the University of Virginia. He was a student under the doctor who ran the clinic, but now he was a doctor in his own rights. And so we had moved to a different part of Virginia, and he happened to be there, and we found each other. So I started going to him, and he told me about another new procedure at the MCV, Medical College of Virginia, where it would help me lose weight, and then I could have more children. And so we made an appointment with Dr. Sugarman. And this was in, let's see, my daughter is 23, so 24, 25 years ago. 25 years ago. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember what year that was. So I went to MCV and met Dr. Sugarman, who was a pioneer in Roux-en-Y bypass and stomach stapling. And I had that done at MCV. The procedure wasn't that bad, and I had to stay in the hospital a week. My husband was 4 hours away by drive, so he wasn't there a lot. My parents were 2 hours, so they came, but my brother-in-law, who's a doctor, who's both of his parents were a doctor, lived in Richmond, and they were doctors in Richmond, and they came to see me every day and watched over me and made sure they were taking care of me and doing me right. They were the most gorgeous people. And so, so I got that done. Within the next year, I lost 110 pounds. I was doing wonderful. It felt fine. And then I got pregnant, but I had a miscarriage. And then I got pregnant with our daughter. And so it caused problems with the pregnancy that I had this done, actually. It caused it to block my intestines as she grew. So I had to find another doctor, and we locally who helped with this, because I ended up, I had to go in the hospital often during this pregnancy because it was causing me a lot of pain and problems. But she was born and healthy, and we were happy. but I still wanted to have more children. So this doctor said, oh, it's no problem. You can do that. You just have to take mineral oil every day. I would shot glass mineral oil. That is the grossest thing to do. So I did that. And then I got pregnant again and had another miscarriage. And then I got pregnant again and had our youngest son, who's now 21. And the doctor I was seeing then, the first doctor who had helped me through my daughter, he had moved away. And so, but I found another doctor and he helped me through her, my son, who they also told us was not going to live to be a year old, because both my boys, for some reason, when they did the blood work, they told us they had some disease worse than Down syndrome. And it was just, I don't know what caused that, but both the boys are fine and healthy and they're fine. But when I had him, because it was so much trouble with my intestines and the things going on, he suggested that maybe I not have any more children. My husband was to the point that he couldn't take it anymore, all the stress of me being in the hospital. So we decided not to have any more children. And but things were going along, but I had gained back up almost to 300 pounds now, and it wasn't going away. So I was having a lot of problems still from the bypass, where I would get a lot of pain in my stomach, and I would it couldn't breathe. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't do anything. So my doctor sent me to a surgeon to be checked out, and I had adhesions from that. And that started a 6-year, very horrible period of my life, where I had 6 surgeries, one every year for 6 years, because of the adhesions from having that procedure. And it also that procedure caused me to have a lot of hernias in my intestines. And the pain was coming from the intestines being twisted and being outside of, through this hernia. So the first surgery I had, they repaired 3 that were the size of softballs. The next summer, they popped out, and I had to have an emergency surgery for that. And then it happened again. One summer, I don't know if this is too graphic, but one summer I had to have home health care come every day, and they left the incision open to heal from the inside out. That was no fun. And that didn't work either. Finally, on the 6th surgery, it was the same surgeon every time, and he was a wonderful man and tried everything he could. They ended up putting a 10 by 10 piece of mesh in me and putting it in there, and he told me I could never exercise again. They told me I couldn't lift anything over 5 pounds, and I gained more weight to 357 pounds.
Yikes.
And when I hit that, I was depressed. I was on 2 different antidepressant medicines. I was just hysterical. One of the things I didn't mention is that right after, when I was in high school, I got mono. I had mono so bad that back then they told you to stay in a dark room for 3 months. I spent a summer learning to cross stitch in a dark room because my mother kept me there. When the lady put the blood work into the machine, she said it flew off the chart before she could even run the test all the way. So I had a really bad case of mono. So after I got married, I couldn't keep my eyes awake. I would fall asleep at my desk at work. I just would sleep all the time. It was terrible. I was tired. And I found this doctor, and I was in Virginia Beach living then, which I wish that I had kept him, but we moved 9 times in 3 years. So that didn't happen. But he had diagnosed me with Hashimoto's. And so this one must have been in 1980s. This was in the 1980s. Hashimoto's was not on people's radar like it is today. My brother-in-law was in med school then. He had never heard of it. And so, but he put me on thyroid medicine back then. So here I was, when all of the stuff happened after the surgery, nobody ever paid attention to my Hashimoto's. Everybody just, whatever, just take the medicine. It doesn't affect anything in your life. You're fat. It's okay. You don't exercise enough. You eat too much. My husband used to laugh because he said I never ate as much as any of them, but I was 357 pounds. And he would say, I don't know how they could say that to you. He was laughing at them for saying it. He never laughed at me. He stood by me through everything. So, so then when I was 357 pounds, I went to a doctor, and he wasn't an integrative doctor. He was a DO, a doctor of osteopath, that he had come into my doctor's practice. I was seeing him, and he told me to eat chia seeds and do stuff. So the internet had become things that you had in your house. So I started researching. Love to research. I love to research. And I found out about juicing. So that I started juicing every day. And it made me have so much energy, and it made me feel so good. And I lost 10 pounds in a year. And so I was just happy. But after a year, I got tired of juicing. I also got tired of cleaning the juicer, because if you do that 3 times a day, by the way, that is really hard. So, so I sort of fell off that wagon, and I had kept the 10 pounds off, but I was desperately looking for something to help me. Now, I'm the next to the youngest out of all of our children, out of all my parents' children, out of all my siblings. And my younger sister and I are 18 months apart. And we've always been sort of close. But during this period, our parents had been getting older. And we got together and decided that we should, once a month, take them out to eat, because they're getting older. Eventually, they're going to be gone. And we wanted to make sure we spent time with them. So once a month we would get together. My sister is gorgeous. She's beautiful. She's skinny. And she talked to me about my weight, because we would have to drive to our parents' house. So we spent a lot of time in the car. And she started trying to help me with things. And so, so one of the things we did is she told me about these drops. I think they're called HGB drops. We ordered them off the internet. And we went on a 700 calorie a day diet. She's already skinny, imagine this. And I'm 347 pounds. But I lost down to 327 pounds doing that. But it was hard to eat 700 calories a day. So that didn't last that long. But afterwards, it stayed off. So, you know, that was pretty good. Then another big chaotic time hit in our lives. Our mother got ill, and so she went to the doctor, because I went to see her, and she said she'd lost the feeling in her hand, but she thought it was from a spider bite. My parents lived on a cattle farm. Yeah, in Virginia, it's a farm, not a ranch. But so she couldn't move her hand. It was numb, and she thought it was from a spider bite that she got. And so I'm going, Mom, that doesn't sound right. You haven't been able to move your hand for a month. So I called my siblings, and we all kept pestering her to go to the doctor. So she finally went to the doctor, and he ordered MRI. And I was volunteering at the rescue mission one day, and I got this call from my sister, and she goes, she lived 2 hours south of me, and our parents lived 2 hours north of me. And she goes, I need to pick you up. And we need to get to Waynesboro. And I'm going, okay, what's wrong? She goes, something's wrong with Mom. We need to get up there. So she goes, I'll tell you about it when I get there. So she came and picked me up, and we drove up to my parents' house. Well, actually, we drove to the hospital. We didn't even go to their house, because Daddy was supposed to take Mom to get the MRI. And that morning, and she couldn't even get out of bed. She couldn't move. He had to lift her and carry her. He had to pull the truck up to the door, lift her, carry her out, put her in the car, and take her to the hospital for the MRI. So Becky and I met them as they were wheeling Mom out of the hospital in the wheelchair. And Becky got all upset because they were sending her home, and she still couldn't move her legs. So she called the doctor in the parking lot and was fussing at him. And so he told us to take her to the emergency room. And so we took her to the emergency room, and they ran tests, and they got the MRI back. We were there till somewhere around midnight that night. We had went at 9 o'clock that morning, and they found that my mother had cancer. and they transported her back to the city I live in because they didn't have a facility to treat her there. And so when they brought her here to figure out about that, they found out she had stage 4 lung cancer, and she had a tumor on her brain. It was in her lymph system, and it was just a big mess. And so my father had been the oldest out of a lot of children, and he grew up in the 30s during the Depression. He couldn't read or write. He was a very smart man, though, because he raised all of us. But so he needed help with Mom because he didn't know what was going on. And so she stayed in the hospital in my area for probably about 3 weeks. And we all, well, every day I was there. My sister was there every day. My siblings would come back and forth. It was a real bad time. And so, so during this time, though, afterwards, we started researching cancer because my father had cancer too, but his wasn't that bad. They were treating it and you couldn't even tell. My mother was 78 when this happened, or was she 79? I think she was 79 because I think she died before her 80th birthday. And so, so my sister and I started doing this research to try to see what we could do to help her through this. And we came across Chris Beats Cancer. And it really hit home with me, and I had a fear of developing cancer. And so between his site and all the research, it said, you need to be a vegan. So I became a raw vegan for 3 months and I couldn't stand that. But then I decided to just become a cook, a vegan who cooked their food. And I did that for 3 years. And so I did the vegan thing. I felt terrible. My blood tests were terrible. My antibodies, not my TSH, because that's useless for thyroid disease, but my antibodies that they tested were going up and up and up. It just wasn't working. I was feeling terrible. I never did it for a moral reason. I did it because I was afraid I was going to die of cancer.
How old were you then, Cindi?
I was 49, and I turned 50 the year my mother passed away. So, but we tried to give my mother juices. We tried to juice for her. Oh my gosh, she didn't take that well. We tried to get my father, who has had cancer, eating like this, because we were driving to their house. My sister would pick me up, and we were driving up there once a week to pay their bills, to shop for them, to take care of them for the first 5 months. And then the last month of my mother's life, my youngest sister and I did most of the work. We were staying with them and taking turns either together with them or taking turns. One of us would stay and one of us would go home to our family, taking care of our parents, because my mother was now in a hospital bed. She couldn't get up. She couldn't take care of herself. It was not a fun time, and it was a hard thing to see. And then my mother passed away, and I lost some weight during this period, but it was not because of effort. It might have been something about the vegans diet, but it was 10 pounds. So it wasn't, I just don't even know why, but I lost 10 pounds. So then my father, we promised my mother, my youngest sister and I did, that we would take care of my father because we knew he couldn't take care of himself. He couldn't pay bills. He couldn't cook. He didn't know how to do laundry. He didn't know how to, he knew how to take care of cows. He knew how to mow the lawn, but he just didn't know all those things. So, so she passed away, and we started still trying to take care of him that far away. And he was having a hard time. So he moved in with my sister, but every week he would be at my house, and I went to every doctor visit that he had. And he had cancer, he had COPD, he had a heart problem. But if you saw my father, you would never know it because he wasn't overweight. He was a very active man. He loved to travel. And he just, nobody ever knew how many doctor visits I had to go to with him because they never knew how sick he really was. So, but we had to start doing that. And during that, my sister was trying to talk me into going to see this integrative physician in North Carolina, where she had now moved to. But I couldn't find the time. I just couldn't find the time. So after about a year of taking care of Daddy, things started to settle down, and I did find the time. I made an appointment, took Daddy with me to the doctor visit, and went to see this integrative doctor. And she really is something that is really, she has been just a lifesaver. She took my Hashimoto's seriously. She put me on a different thyroid medicine twice a day. I got my energy back a little bit. She found out that I had all of these underlying other illnesses that she started to treat. And she told me to go on a AIP diet and to cut things out of my life. So I tried that. And that helped a little. And I lost maybe 20 pounds. I lost down to 270. But then my father got ill. He had went to Montana in October with my brother. Then he went to Georgia in November with my other brother and some of my nephews. And he came home with a cold. And my sister called me up and she said, Daddy is not acting right. He came home yesterday and he can't get out of bed. He sounds horrible. We're taking him to the emergency room in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And I said, okay, I'll be there. I'm leaving right now. So my husband and I went down and met my sister in the emergency room with our father, and they admitted him with pneumonia. So then he was in the hospital. My sister was staying with him every day because it was in the city she lived in. And I was driving down every couple of days, and he got worse. And they moved him from a regular room to ICU. So then I was staying down there all the time, but I'd have to come home at least one day to help my family. And this happened, I think it was about 2 weeks he was in the hospital. It was a very intense time. And so one morning I had arranged to go down. One night my husband and I were out, and my sister called me and said, Daddy's worse. I'm sending you a picture. Oh, it was a picture of Daddy in the bed. They had hooked all these wires and tubes up. It was just horrible. So I said, it's late at night. It was during the December. It was during the winter. I didn't want to drive down there after dark. So I said, I'll be there first thing in the morning. My oldest son, I had told I was, letting my children know what would happen. He said, I'm coming with you. So he met me early the next morning. I had packed a bag. We went down there to see Daddy. And Daddy was talking out of his head. It was really not good. And we didn't understand, Becky and I didn't understand everything that was going on. And they had put a cart in front of the ICU room with drinks and snacks on it. If that ever happens, that's not a good sign. They know the patient is not going to live. So, but nobody bothered to really tell us this until later that day. So they told us Daddy didn't have long to live. And so we contacted everybody. By the way, this was a couple years after my mother had died. My father had a girlfriend, and she came, and then my father died at 86. So he had got a girlfriend at 85. I mean, he was a very active man. And so she came, his friends from the area, because he had met all these people down there because he was very social and outgoing, came. Family came that could. And then they all left, and it was late at night, and my sister and I were there, and his IV had made his arm puff up. And so the nurse was going to change the site. When she took it out, he died. And so we hadn't been there when our mother passed away because she was in that hospice, but we had been there during that, and it was not a good experience. So I just gained weight again because I ate, and I had started going back up, but now I was up to like 290 again during this. But I was still seeing the integrative doctor. A matter of fact, I saw her right the day after Daddy passed away. I had an appointment since I was down there. I just went ahead and went. And I was telling her about some other issues I had. And so she ran some tests. And then she contacted me a few weeks later and she says, you have a tapeworm and parasites. And I'm going, what? And my brother-in-law, the doctor, who said that that was a third world problem, that was just, it was ridiculous, said there's no way, but I did. And she put me on pharmaceuticals to try to treat it. And I did a lot of research on it, but the only thing I was researching is how I got it, which you can get it from water. You can get it from people if you eat out, from not washing their hands. It's amazing. Undercooked pork, which is why I will not eat pork to this day. There's just all these kind of ways that you can get it. So I started battling that for a year.
How old are you now?
I am 56 now.
No, I mean when you were battling the tapeworm.
54.
Okay.
So I was 54. And in the middle of that year, after 6 months of being on this medicine for it and doing things, there was a couple weeks that I actually thought clearly. And I don't know, a lot of your viewers will understand that, but people who might be just watching this, when you have Hashimoto's, when you've been eating potatoes and starches and stuff, you don't realize that you don't realize how foggy your brain is until you hit a clear spot. And I hit a clear spot for 2 weeks and I was amazed at how clear and I could think and how I could remember things. I couldn't even remember words then. When I was talking, I would stop and not remember what I was saying. And all of a sudden that happened. And I thought, well, it must be because I've had this a long time. And so, so I thought that's what it was. Then I went back because that was happening. I went back for a checkup. We did another test. Nope, says I still had it. Went on another 6 months round of all this medicine. She had to actually write a note to my insurance company because they didn't want to pay for it because people should only have 1 round of this medicine. So 6 months more of that medicine. I went for another test. It was December again. I was just turned 55. And it said, I still had it. I was away at my husband's parents when I got that report. Plus it said another test she had ran because of some other blood work result said I had chronic Epstein-Barr and chronic Coxsackie's. So I was just throwing my hands up. I was going, all these things are wrong with me. There's got to be a way to fix it. I've got to fix this. I don't want to keep taking medicine. I'm tired of taking medicine. I was taking 58 pills a day plus liquids. I just was tired. So I started Googling. My children laugh because at 55 years old, I wanted to be hired by Google. It's my favorite thing in the world. But I started Googling how to naturally fix this. And as I Googled how to naturally fix my parasite and tapeworm problem, I came across keto because the more starches and sugars you eat, the more it turns and feeds these things, and the more they just keep surviving and you can't get rid of them. So then I started looking on YouTube, another one of my favorite places to be because I'm a hands-on see person, so I loved YouTube. And I found Keto in the Chaos. And I binge watched everything she had. And so I decided, my daughter and I were together, and my daughter was 22, no, she was 21 then, and she had a weight issue because I had been a parent who didn't know any better and fed my kids the standard American diet, and all of my kids had a weight issue, and we always thought it was genetic, that they just took after their mother because their father does not have one. So, we, her and I talked about it, and we decided we were going to try this keto thing after we got home because we were at my in-laws' house for Christmas. And we did a lot of research while we were there, and we pinned all these recipes, and we.
So this is like 1 year ago.
Last December, January.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We found all these sites, we found all these YouTube channels that we started watching. And so I came home to Virginia. My daughter lives in Kansas also. And so we started FaceTiming each other every day, talking about meal planning, talking about recipes we were trying. Because as I told you one time in one of your comments, I work retail. And I work in a very stressful retail job. I work for a shop at home channel at home. And I get calls, no cold calls, but I get calls from people every day buying things, and man, they're not always nice. And at the Christmas time, it's very, or any holiday, it's stressful, or anytime they put on something popular and you get yelled at a lot. And I've done it for 11 years, don't know why, but there are some perks to it. I get to work from home. And I get to make my hours and rearrange them, which is always good. So I had been eating a family-sized bag of Reese's Pieces every week during Christmas pre-finding keto. I would go through the whole, and sometimes even more than that, plus all the other junk I was eating to make my feel-good hormone survive through this very stressful thing, which I did every stressful time in my life. And so, so I was back in Virginia, and we started this on January the 5th. The first week I lost 7 pounds, and I'm going, oh my goodness. Well, I didn't learn about water weight till later, but I was all happy. And so my daughter lost weight, and so we're going to keep this up. And we were, I was making keto-fied desserts. And so we did that, but it seemed to be working. And I kept on it, and I kept watching that. And then in March or April, I can't remember when, Tammy had mentioned other keto channels. She was sharing about that. And that's how I found you, is she mentioned your name, and I watched you, and but you didn't do this keto-fi thing. So it's like, oh, well, you know, I'll watch you every now and again. And recipe, you know, I need no baked keto cookies, which I was eating every day because I was still needing that feel-good hormone through my stress period. So I got to June, and I had lost 40-some pounds. I wasn't having a problem cutting things out except for during stress. Nothing bothered me. But then in June, my in-laws came to stay, and my sister-in-law came to stay, and I made no-bake keto cookies. My mother-in-law loved them. But while they were here, I had a lot of free time because I wasn't working. So I started watching more of your videos, because I guess I came to a point where I was, you know, I'm 55 years old. These people are young. They're losing hundreds of pounds. This ain't going that fast for me. You know, is there something I'm doing wrong, or what's the matter? So I started watching your videos, and then I started doing other Googling. And so I decided, you know, I pretty much really screwed up my metabolism with all the things I'd done to my body. And so I just stopped watching other videos that much, and I started watching you every day. But I wasn't commenting. I was just watching you. And so then I decided, well, maybe I need to try to get off of these no-bake keto cookies every day. And so I started weaning myself off of that. And I'm not on some things I could just quit cold turkey. When I went vegan, I quit meat cold turkey. But on that one, I guess the way I've come to figure it is I have issues dealing with stress. So I was still doing that. But then during some of my reading, watching videos, I came across carnivore. And I started thinking, well, maybe, you know, since I've learned my metabolism, maybe I need to get stricter. Sarah's always talking about 20 grams of less of carbs a day, because I was using Chronometer. For the first 7 months, I used it daily. I knew everything I ate. I put it in there. So I was doing really good. And then I found Mike. And so I started watching his videos from the November before, when he had started.
This is Keto Mad. I just wanted to insert. It's Keto.
Right. Keto Mad. So I started watching Mike. And so I started deciding, well, if carnivore kept coming up in my feeds and I'm watching these people are talking about it, maybe I need to give it a try. Because one of the things that I didn't tell you about my having my stomach stapling intestines rerouted is I was visiting the girls' room more than 25 times a day.
Mm.
And they told me I had irritable bowel syndrome and dumping syndrome. And there was nothing I could do about it. And I'm going, you know, I'm really tired of this. Maybe, and I was still having bloating and stuff when I was eating things. So I sort of tried to follow for a month the way I saw you eat. I went to just these green leafy vegetables, romaine, baby lettuce. I bought macadamia nut oil, and I tried that. And actually I had a little bit more pain then. So, so I said, well, you know, not everybody's the same. Maybe I need to try something different. So in the middle of July, I talked to my husband and I said, I'm going to stop eating vegetables. And he's going, okay, whatever. And so I said, but I'll cook them for you, but I'm just not going to eat them. And so I also added some dairy back in my life because on when you have Hashimoto's, you're not supposed to have dairy, but I really was craving dairy, but not like, just like I added heavy whipping cream, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I added yogurt back in my life, and I added a little cheese, but not a lot. And so I found Dr. Fung right when I started carnivore, and I read his book about obesity. Actually, I listened to it because I listen to audiobooks. So I listened to his book, and then I decided I needed to fast. I needed to do intermittent fasting. And I was watching you 5 days a week, and you guys you and Mike both do 1 meal a day. So I decided, well, at least I needed to try some intermittent fasting. So to do that at 55, I decided I needed to learn to drink coffee. I had never, ever drank coffee. And my husband had always been trying to get me to, but I said, nah, ain't gonna do it. And so at 55, in the middle of July, I started drinking coffee, but I could not stand it. So then I tried it with heavy whipping cream, butter, and MTC oil. And I could drink it, but it didn't help with other things. So I cut out the MTC oil, the butter, and just put the heavy whipping cream in it. And that was good. And so I started drinking coffee in the mornings, and I got to where I could eat just 2 meals a day. I don't think I'll ever get to 1 meal because of having my stomach issues where I had the surgery for it. I have a problem with being malnourished all the time and not absorbing nutrients. So, so I'm happily just doing still 2 meals a day. But I started carnivore. But I guess I'm not a purist carnivore because I have eggs once a week. I have some dairy, and I drink coffee. And but as I'm studying up and listening to people about it, you know, there are a few times that I've heard what people say, and I would try it, and it just didn't work for me. So I'm just a, what do we call it? Carnivore.
Carnivish.
Carnivish. I'm carnivish.
But you know what, Cindi, is that most carnivore people that I've interviewed or watched, they have the plant-based coffee beans. They have that. You know, I think that the carnivore world is a lot more forgiving about. I call myself sometimes carnivish also, but it's because of the veggies that I have, like 5% veggies, 95% meat, something like that.
Right.
I think that you're very carnivore compared to the other people that I listen to.
Well, cool. Well, I had lost pounds. So then when I went for between July, I don't know why it's
when we get to about an hour, which is now.
Oh, sorry.
This is the broadcast gets iffy. So I don't want anything to be left out, but if you could condense it. So
I'm sorry, I talk a lot. Between July and December now, I have lost 25 more pounds on carnivore. I have lost a total of 75 pounds. Over Christmas, I had given myself leeway because I was going to my mother-in-law's again, that I could eat if I wanted to vegetables and things like that. But I didn't do it because I feared having to stay in the restroom the whole time there. So I lost 6 pounds over Christmas. So, you know, that was pretty cool at my mother-in-law's. Nobody has really given me a hard time about the way I eat. And I have been out to eat with friends and family. You know, they just sort of ask me questions about it, but nobody says anything because most people know I've struggled my whole life with as this long tail I told you. Most people who know me know that. And so they just don't, and they know the illnesses I've had and they know how fat I was and how much difference I've gone down. And I still have a long ways to go. But I'm sticking to it and I'm doing good and I don't feel a need to ever go off of it. I did tell you last week I was craving a pickle and I was cutting up pickles for my husband and my son, and it was a dill pickle. And I was going, oh gosh, I really want this. I'm just going to eat a dill pickle. Don't do that. Just don't do that. That didn't go over well. I was very ill the next day. So I told my husband, I said, nope, not going to do that anymore. I cook for them. I cook vegetables. I cook starches. I buy sweets for them because I do all the shopping. And it doesn't bother me. I went through Christmas in retail and I was very stressed again. And the only thing I did is eat a lot of Lily's chocolate. And I decided not to feel guilty about that because I didn't gain any weight. But after Christmas, I cut it out. I just cut it off. I'm not eating it now. So I think that's why I think I'm not a food addict, because I can cut it out and stop. I'm an emotional eater. That's what I have to work on, is not eating when I'm stressed out and the world is falling around my ears and I just can't take chaos. Some of that I've learned to solve not by food, but by trying to be mindful that I know that happens to me, and to keep chaos out of my life, period. To keep stress out of my life. And so, but it took me until I was 56 to learn that I was reactive and that I let other people dictate how I feel. It took me until I was on keto to be able to grocery shop by myself, because I would get so emotionally unstable and hysterical that I could not go to the grocery store by myself. My husband or my children had to be with me to keep me calm through the grocery store. But after I did keto, I stopped taking all antidepressants. And I made it, and I started shopping by myself. And I didn't have a mental breakdown. I didn't cry. I didn't leave the buggy and walk out of the store like I've been known to do. I didn't freak out. It was amazing.
That is amazing. A true non-scale victory. All right, we're at an hour.
Okay.
And so I don't want to see you lose the viewers because they don't have that much time.
I'm so sorry I talked so much.
But that's why I wanted to do it on Fridays as well, so people had the weekend, you know, to finish up things. But right. Before we close, I just want to ask, is there anything that you left out about your keto carnivore journey that you'd like to end with?
I don't think I left anything out. I think I included everything, and I'm so sorry to everybody for going on and on, but it's been a long life and it's been all this stuff. I would never undo some things that I did because I got my children for the surgery I had. I have issues to deal with it, but I'm glad I found a way to live with the choices I made and to do my health. I did get blood work done in the fall, yes. And for the first time in 56 years or 50, whenever actually 30 some, when they diagnosed me with Hashimoto's, even when I take medicine twice a day. Even in the last 6 years, taking medicine twice a day, for the first time ever, all my thyroid antibodies were normal. They've never been in the normal range, even on medicine. My C-reactive protein went from 10.4 to 4.6 in the last year on keto. My and my cholesterol was like perfect. And so
wow.
Yeah, and I eat a lot of butter because I put butter on everything. So it's just, you just can't. I thought I knew everything about nutrition, but I learned a lot in the last year. I can think with clarity now. I remember my words. I remember things that happened in my life. When my mother died, I didn't remember shoveling snow. The year before that, I started keeping a planner because I was freaking out because my sister was talking about us shoveling her sidewalk, and I'm going, it snowed. I couldn't even remember that that had happened. And now I can remember everything. So I don't know. I'm just happy.
Well, this has been a great hour to get to know you, Cindi, and you certainly have paid the price emotionally and with trauma and drama in your life. And thank you for sharing your life with us here today. It's great. And yep, there's keto and carnivore can just clean up so many things besides just losing the weight. And you showed us that with your health, with your becoming aware of your stress, your chaos, how you have to handle yourself. And it's just coming up with a new game plan, you know, how to put things into order and practice. And especially being in retail, it'll be a good thing to have like a plan B that you can just pull in, and I can get through this. So I just want to thank you. And
Ramble, sorry.
that's okay. And you needed to. And to keep things going, I hope that you'll like be posting on my YouTube channel your progress so we can see. It's CINDI, because there's a Y one and there's a CYNDI one. So this is the CINDI one. And so I look forward to hearing from you there soon.
Oh, thanks, Sarah, for being.
Close out the broadcast, and then it'll be just you and me. So thank you, Cindi.
You're welcome.